If anyone had told me that love would nearly cost me my life, I would have laughed. I believed in loyalty, in building together with my man, and in the idea that when you marry someone, you marry their entire family. So I gave everything, my strength, my youth, my brain, my heart, to a man and his family. What I didn't know was that behind every smile they gave me was a knife waiting for the perfect moment to strike. My name is Amaka. I'm the first of 3 daughters raised by a single mother who ran a roadside canteen in our hometown. Life wasn't easy, but Mama made sure we had enough to eat and clothes to wear, even if they were hand-me-downs. She raised us with values, honesty, hard work, and endurance. I carried those values into every part of my life, especially my marriage. I met Emeka during my NYSC in Enugu. He was charming, tall, with the kind of smile that could melt stress. He owned a small electronics shop then, not much, but enough to survive. We dated for a year and got married in a small, humble ceremony. I was madly in love and I was ready to support his dreams. But it wasn't just Emeka I was marrying, it was his entire family. From the beginning, his mother, Mama Emeka, made it clear that she didn't like me. She called me Ngwanu girl, a subtle suggestion that I was too forward, too ambitious and too educated. His sisters, Amara and Nkechi, always acted like I had stolen their brother from them. They rarely spoke to me directly, and when they did, it was always with passive-aggressive jabs. But I didn't care. I was focused on my husband. I told myself love would soften their hearts. I believed that when they saw how much I was willing to give, they would come around. Emeka had dreams of expanding his shop into a full electronics business. He wanted to start importing items directly from China. I had a little money saved from my NYSC and a small inheritance my mother left behind when she passed. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make a difference, so I gave it all to him. We registered the business together. Am Tech World, Emeka and Amaka, a symbol of unity, of partnership, of dreams built together. At first, things were beautiful. We worked side by side. I handled the records, did the inventory, and even managed the social media pages that brought in new customers. The business grew fast, and within 2 years, we moved from a small shop to a full plaza space. We started wholesaling to other retailers. Emeka's name was now being mentioned among the top young businessmen in the region. But the more we succeeded, the more I felt myself fading into the background. He started traveling more often, business trips to Lagos, to Abuja, to China. He insisted I stayed behind to manage things while he explored bigger deals. I agreed. I trusted him because I thought we were a team. His family, however, became more present in our lives, not as helpers, but as vultures cycling a feast. His sisters started working in the shop, not because they had skills, but because family should be involved. His mother would stop by and take things without paying, sometimes even reselling our electronics in her own small store. When I complained, Emeka brushed it off. Their family, Amaka, let them be part of it. I didn't argue. I had been raised to respect in-laws. I swallowed the discomfort and told myself it was the price of peace. But the cracks were growing, and I was too blind, or too hopeful maybe, to see how deep they ran. Then came Adora. She was introduced as a business consultant that Emeka met during one of his Lagos trips. She was slim, flashy, always dressed in expensive designer clothes with long nails and a thick accent that wasn't quite Nigerian or foreign, just fake. She started coming around often, giving advice on branding, marketing, packaging, and Emeka praised her endlessly. You should learn from her, he once said to me. She understands modern business. That night, I cried quietly in our bedroom while he snored beside me. I had built the foundation of his business from the ground up. I had given my all, but suddenly I wasn't enough anymore. The real turning point came one Saturday evening. I had just finished balancing the books for the week when I overheard Emeka arguing on the phone. He was in the balcony, thinking I couldn't hear him, but the window was slightly opened. She's getting suspicious. I'll handle it, just relax. My heart froze. He never mentioned who he was talking to, but deep down I knew. My instinct screamed at me that something was very, very wrong. The next few weeks were a blur of confusion and pain. I started feeling sick, nausea, fatigue, and terrible headaches. At first, I thought it was stress, but then it became worse. I collapsed twice at the shop. I lost weight. My hair started thinning. I visited the hospital and the results were confusing. No clear diagnosis. The doctors suspected food poisoning or maybe an autoimmune issue. But one day, one of our junior staff, Chioma, came to me with tears in her eyes. "Auntie Amaka," she said, trembling, "please don't tell anyone I told you. But I saw Mama Emeka adding something to your food the other day. She thought I wasn't washing. She said it's herbal powder. But I'm scared for you, Auntie." My hands shook. My legs went weak. I couldn't believe it. My own mother-in-law. That night, I pretended to be asleep on the couch. I watched as Emeka came home with Adora. Yes, Adora. They kissed right there in my living room. She called me a mumu wife and laughed about how the inheritance will soon be theirs. My chest tightened and I held back the scream that wanted to erupt from my throat. I was being poisoned. Not just my food, my trust, my love and loyalty. Everything I had built was being taken away from me by the people I called family. And Emeka, he was no longer my husband. He was my enemy. But I didn't cry that night. For the first time in a long while, I didn't cry. Instead, I began to plan. They wanted to bury me while I was still breathing, but they didn't know I was already digging graves, just not for myself. I stopped eating anything I hadn't prepared with my own hands. I stopped trusting anyone who smiled at me too quickly. I stopped being the Amaka that begged for love and approval. Something inside me broke, and in its place, something stronger grew. But I knew I had to be careful. If I acted too fast, they would tighten their grip. So I wore the same old smile. I walked the same path. I let them believe I was still weak, still sick, and still blind. I was done playing wife. Now I was playing chess. My first move was silence. The kind of silence that makes your enemy overconfident. The poison stopped working once I cooked all my own meals. My strength slowly returned, but I pretended I was still sick. I started showing up late to the shop, holding my waist like it was hurting, walking like I needed support. Emeka barely noticed because he had completely drifted. He spent more time with Adora now, calling her his business angel, the woman who was helping him take the company global. What they didn't know was that I had begun making copies of everything: contracts, business bank statements, customers list, shipment records. I kept them all on a hidden USB drive and emailed backups to myself. One night when Emeka was asleep, I unlocked his phone using the fingerprint he once jokingly registered on my own device. I wasn't even surprised by what I saw anymore. Messages between him and Adora discussing how to transfer full business ownership to her name once I was completely out of the way. But what chilled me to the bone were the voice notes between Emeka and his mother. In one of the voice notes, he said, "Mama, she's getting better. The medicine is not working like before. She must not recover," his mother hissed. "Adora is already pregnant. We need her out of the picture permanently." Pregnant? I paused the audio and sat frozen in bed. My marriage was a lie. My life was in danger. My entire sacrifice has been tossed into the gutters. And they weren't just trying to hurt me. They were planning to erase me. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. The next morning, I packed a small bag and went to my younger sister's house on the mainland under the pretext of needing rest. Uju had always been suspicious of Emeka, but she respected my silence. When she saw me pale and thinner than before, her eyes filled with tears. "I knew something wasn't right," she whispered. "She don't look like the sister I know. What is going on?" I told her everything, every dirty detail, the poisoning, the betrayal, the pregnancy, the plans to steal the business. Uju didn't cry. She grabbed her phone and started typing. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Calling my friend, the lawyer. It's time to play their game." With Uju's help, I filed for an urgent business investigation and ownership freeze using the proof I had saved. But we didn't do it publicly. We worked with a quiet, determined female lawyer who had once gone through a similar betrayal. Her name was Barrister Ifoma, and she was fire in human form. She helped me transfer the company's core legal documents, including registration and import licenses, to my name alone. using the silent clause Emeka and I had agreed to during setup. Since I had invested more and handled daily operations, the law gave me advantage. We also flagged the business bank account and blocked large transfers until the dispute was settled. Then we waited. The next week, I returned home with 2 bags of groceries and a fake kindness in my voice. "Good evening, Mama," I said, smiling at my mother-in-law as she sat in the living room watching a soap opera. She blinked at me in surprise. You are looking strong." "Yes, so Mama, God is good," I said. "I've been praying. Maybe you were right, Mama. It's a spiritual sickness, but I'm better now." She didn't know whether to be happy or scared. I could feel it in the way her eyes darted away from mine. She didn't trust my smile anymore, and that was exactly what I wanted. Later that night, Emeka came home unusually cheerful. He brought takeout and even kissed my forehead. "We need to talk. I know things haven't been perfect between us. We need to talk. I know things haven't been perfect between us, but I want to fix things. I've been under a lot of pressure." I just nodded. He was sweating, unsure. The business account had been flagged that morning. His ATM card stopped working. I'm sure Adora would have started asking questions, and they didn't know I was already 10 steps ahead. "I want us to go away together," he continued. "Just for a weekend, to reconnect." "A weekend getaway?" I asked. "After everything?" I smiled softly and touched his hand. "That would be lovely, Emeka." But I didn't go anywhere with him. I simply packed my bags that night and left with the original business documents, the USB drive, and my wedding ring. I left it on the dining table like a statement, and by morning I was gone. And that is when they panicked. Calls started flooding in. His sisters, his mother, Emeka, even Adora, all of them trying to reach me, but I had blocked their numbers. I was no longer the Amaka they could manipulate. When I finally answered one unknown number, it was Emeka. "You thief!" he barked. "Where are you? What have you done to the business?" I spoke calmly. "You mean the business I built? The one your mother tried to poison me over? Or the one you were planning to hand over to your side chick?" He stuttered. You have no right." "I have every right, Emeka. I was the one who signed the supplier contract. I was the one listed as primary director. You never cared enough to check. You were too busy chasing shadows." He was silent for a moment, and then he said something that surprised me. "She lost the baby." For a brief second, I said nothing. "Good," I replied coldly. "Now all 3 of you knows what it feels like to lose something." Then I ended the call. The next few days were chaos. News spread quickly that M-Arm Tech World has entered a legal freeze. Suppliers were instructed to only deal with me. Customers were told to call my direct number. Mecca showed up at the shop, shouting and asking to be let in, but the new security hired through a private firm blocked him. Adora tried to open her own store nearby, but nobody took her seriously. Her reputation was stained. Apparently, she had done something similar to another man in Port Harcourt before relocating to Lagos. The internet never forgot. A former associate exposed her scam story online. Emeka's sister tried to plead with me, but I refused to meet them. Emeka's mother, however, crossed the line. She came to my sister's house with a crowd, claiming I had bewitched her son and stolen their inheritance. That day, I did something I had never done before. I recorded everything, her shouting, her insults, her threats, and I posted the clip online and tagged the business page. Meet the woman who tried to kill me so she could hand my business to her son's mistress. Within hours, the video went viral. Customers began sending me messages of support. Survivors of in-law abuse opened up in the comments. Women who had lost everything to marriage and betrayal started following my page. I didn't just survive, I became a symbol of taking your power back. But I wasn't done. I launched a new campaign, Built, Not Borrowed, a mentorship program for young women trying to start businesses on their own without relying on anyone who could later claim they met you. I started teaching classes, both online and offline. I shared my story, not as a victim, but as a warrior who learned the hard way. Then one morning, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. I clicked on it. "I'm sorry, Amaka. Please forgive me. I lost everything. I was stupid. I miss you. Emeka. I looked at the message for a long time and I smiled, but I didn't reply. I didn't reply Emeka's message that day, nor the next day either. In fact, I never replied at all. His words of "I'm sorry, I miss you, I lost everything" meant nothing to me anymore. It was too late. The man who once held my heart in his hands had crushed it, spat on it, and tried to replace me like I was some disposable help. Now that the house of cards had come crashing down, he wanted Missy, but I wasn't that woman anymore. I was done being the builder of broken men. That same week, my mentorship group hit over 15,000 members across the country. Women were sharing their own stories of betrayal, sacrifice, and silence. One woman shared how her husband convinced her to sell her father's land to support his car business, only to turn around and marry his secretary. Another said her in-laws kicked her out of her home after her husband died, even though she had paid most of the mortgage. My story had become their story, and our voices were growing louder. I finally had purpose, real, raw, and meaningful. But life wasn't done testing me yet. One Friday afternoon, as I was leaving a conference center in Abuja after speaking to a group of women entrepreneurs, I saw a familiar figure leaning on a car. Emeka. He looked like a shadow of himself, thinner, with sunken eyes, shirt slightly wrinkled. Not the confident, flashy man who once believed he could have both a wife and a mistress without consequences. Now he looks like someone who had stared into a mirror and finally seen the monster looking back. "Amaka," he said, walking towards me slowly. I kept walking towards my car until he blocked my path. "Please," he said, "can we just talk?" I crossed my arms, calm and composed. "We've said all we needed to say, Emeka. What more do you want?" "I just need you to understand that I made a mistake," he said. "A big one. Adora was using me. She was never pregnant. It was all fake. She drained my account and disappeared. I haven't heard from her in months." I almost laughed, but I didn't. He continued, "I lost everything. The shop, the cars, my name. Nobody wants to do business with me anymore. My mother cries every night and my sisters are blaming me. Everyone turned their backs." I looked him dead in the eye and asked him one question that had haunted me in silence. "Why?" He swallowed. "I don't know. Maybe pride. Maybe I thought you'd always be there, no matter what I did. You were so strong, so capable. I guess I thought I could get away with it." "And you tried to poison me?" I snapped, my voice rising. "You brought a woman into our home, planned to steal everything I built with my bare hands and give it to her. And now, because she turned out to be a fraud too, you want pity, when you were also a fraud yourself." He fell silent. "Good." I took a step closer and I said to him, "Let me tell you something, Emeka. You didn't lose me when Adora came. You lost me the day you stopped seeing me as a human being. The day you let your family treat me like a rag and you stood by watching. The day you made me feel like a stranger in my own business. That was when I left, even if I hadn't packed my bags yet." I walked past him without looking back. That evening, I got a call from my lawyer, Barrister Ifeoma. "There's something you need to know," she said. "Emeka filed for a settlement." "A what?" "He's trying to claim compensation for being removed from the business." I almost dropped my phone. "He's mad," I said. "He helped plan my murder. Now he wants a payout." Ifeoma chuckled. "Don't worry," she said. "I've got everything we need to bury this in court. But you might want to show up, Let the world see you, strong, unbothered, and standing tall." And so I did. I showed up. The courtroom was packed. News of the case had spread, and everyone wanted to see the woman who turned betrayal into power and the man who lost everything because of greed. Emeka stood with his lawyer, trying to paint a picture of unfair removal from a jointly owned business. He even tried to show fake receipts of his personal investments, which were all torn apart by Ifeoma during cross-examination. Then came the moment of truth. We played the recordings, his voice, his mother's, their plans, the poison, the pregnancy lies, the betrayal. The courtroom was totally silent. The judge, an elderly woman with eyes that saw through lies, shook her head. What kind of husband allows such evil to happen under his roof and then has the audacity to demand compensation, she asked. She ruled in my favor again. Not only was his claim dismissed, but the court also ordered him to pay damages for emotional distress and attempted fraud. He didn't have the money, of course. He left the courtroom with a dog with its tail between its legs. Justice never tasted so sweet. Months passed. My new electronics company, Amatech Global, officially launched with a new partner, a female investor who had followed my storyline. We opened our first Lagos branch and began supplying other female-owned shops across West Africa. Business was booming again, but this time on my own terms. I visited my mother's grave one morning, carrying a small basket of fresh flowers. I cleaned her tombstone and knelt beside it. I finally did it, Mama, I whispered. I'm no longer the girl begging for love. I'm the woman you raised me to be, strong, wise, and unbreakable. The wind blew gently through the trees, and I knew she was proud of me. Later that year, I was invited to speak on a TV panel titled Women Who Rose from Betrayal. After the show, a young woman from the audience approached me with tears in her eyes. I was engaged to a man who made me invest in his poultry business, she said. A week before our wedding, he disappeared with everything. I thought my life was over. I took her hands in mine and I said to her, your life isn't over, it's just beginning. Sometimes, God allows a storm to show us the truth, and when we survive it, we don't go back to who we were. We become something better. One night, as I scrolled through emails before bed, I noticed a message from a familiar name, Adora O. Curiously, I opened it. Amaka, you don't know me personally and maybe you hate me, but I want to say thank you. Your strength exposed the lies I've lived with. I was raised to believe being a side chick to a rich man was power, but you showed me that real power is building something for yourself. I'm in therapy now. I'm learning. I just wanted you to know you changed my life. Adora. I sat in silence for a long moment. No reply was needed. Sometimes your victory isn't in seeing your enemies fall. It's in watching yourself rise so high that even the ones who hurt you start questioning their own lives. The moral lessons that we learn from Amaka's journey is to never lose yourself while trying to hold on to someone else. Being a wife or a partner doesn't mean becoming a slave. Silence is power when used wisely. Let your revenge be your growth. Family is not always love. You need to protect your peace. A betrayal doesn't end your life. It just starts a better one. Thank you for watching this story. Please share your thoughts on what you've learned from the story in the comments box. Don't forget to like and share with your loved ones. Until I bring you another wonderful story, stay tuned.